Hey, what is going on, guys? DK. Back at you with another video here to the 4-game NBA main slate on Sunday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name is DK. I make daily videos and live stream for NBA and NFL slates on Draftkings, and I also make videos for NBA Top Shot. If you're unable to watch these videos, I'll put on Apple Podcasts. Link down below. It's called the DKDFS Show. And if you could, take a minute or two out of your day, leave a 5-star rating and review. That would be greatly appreciated, because every single 5-star or every single rating review just boosts me up in the podcast rankings. If you are interested in signing up for premium content, I offer that on patreon.com, an esports package that includes Call of Duty and CSGO, as well as an NBA package. And I do want to thank Prize Picks for sponsoring this episode. If you're not familiar with Prize Picks, so the idea is they will post players and their fantasy scores or fantasy projections, and you can either take the over or the under on them. So, for example, Joel Embiid is projected for 52 fantasy points tomorrow. Now that seems a little low to me, right? Because they've been easing on his minutes at the end of the regular season, taking it easy on him. But this is the playoffs. He's going to play 35 plus minutes. So as long as the game stays competitive, I don't know how he doesn't go over that. So I like the over there on Embiid. Also like the over on Chris Paul. I think he plays more, even though it's a bad matchup. 37 feels a little bit low. So those are the two I personally like the over on. And they are running a special deal for today and today only, where it's a 100% match up to $250. So if you guys want to sign up, use the code DKDFS. DKDFS, all one word, link down below. Again, today and today only, if you deposit $250, you'll get $250 free to play with. So big promo. Make sure to take advantage of it if you're not signed up yet. And finally, just got to thank you guys for the continued support. Again, live streams, we've been getting 300 average viewers every single live stream. Did a short one, today it was early one, obviously because the game started early, and we had close to 300 viewers again. So yeah, your guys' support is greatly appreciated. And if you could, leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, when I live. I will be doing YouTube live tomorrow, actually a little bit earlier, right? So it's 12 o'clock lock Central. So I'll be live at 11 a.m. Central to break it all down and answer any of your guys' questions. So make sure to check it out. All right, so before we talk about players and the prices for this 4-game slate, we can look back the lineup here from Saturday's slate. Foul trouble for Kemba Walker. 3 fouls in 9 minutes in the first half. 19 fantasy points total for Kemba Walker against the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, so the only game I watched the first half of the Miami-Milwaukee game. That was it. Can someone explain to me how that Boston-Brooklyn game scored under 200 points total? Was everyone just throwing a bunch of bricks? I mean, I know Kemba was, and I also know Tatum was. He shot 6 of 22 or something. How? That is such an outlier game that game goes 30 plus points under the total. 104 to 93. I saw it. I was like, what on earth? Again, I didn't watch the game, so you guys got to tell me, how did that happen? I was about 7 points away from the money line here. If Kemba just has a normal game, it's a really good night for me. But of course, he gets early foul trouble and finishes below 20 fantasy points. I mean, the last 8 games, 45, 45, 39, 46, 48, 32, 54, 48, 19. Okay. Well, that's what I got to tilt about, because that just busted my lineup. Everything else was solid. So Goran Dragic and Jimmy Butler were my two favorite Miami Heat players. Now, got a little bit unlucky with Jimmy Butler. I know it went to overtime, but he shot awful. What did he finish shooting? At one point, he was 3 of 17. He finished 4 of 22, and he still went for 47 fantasy points. So he shot 4 of 22 and went for 47. Imagine if he just has a decent shooting game, he's going for 60 plus easily. So yeah, I'll play Jimmy in that spot at, what was he, 8.4K every single time. He's still a good game, but it could have been a massive game if he just has a decent shooting game. The rest of my lineup, so the last two pieces in for me were Campozo and Aaron Gordon. I didn't feel amazing about either. Obviously, with Monte Morris on the bench, and Aaron Gordon just not been great. They're both fine. 25 for Campozo, 30 for Gordon. I used Claxton for value, and now he didn't play as much as I expected. I was a little bit tilted about that. He only played 11 minutes. He played well in that time, but they actually, surprisingly, they did go Jeff Green at the 5 because Blake Griffin didn't play, or again, I didn't watch this game, but I saw it had to have been Jeff Green at the 5, right? Because looking at the minutes, Blake Griffin played 20, and Claxton only played 11. So Jeff Green played a decent amount of minutes at the 5. I wasn't expecting that against a big front court like Thompson and Robert Williams. Did you see Robert Williams had 9 blocks in like 20 minutes? What? Like, what is that? How is that possible? But yeah, so like Claxton, I was a little bit surprised. I did not think that would happen because Boston played with the traditional center, but hey, the Nets did. They went small, so obviously we're not going to be able to get to Claxton on the next slate. And then yeah, Kawhi Leonard, you guys knew I was going there. Like I hinted, he was way underpriced. Then he used Yusuf Nurkic too. I thought he was a little bit too cheap for a guy that's going to play a little bit more. We know he's a good point per minute guy. He went for 42 fantasy points. All in all, it's just Kemba, right? Kemba just has a normal game. I'm probably 3xing at least, but just decides to get in foul trouble and go for under 20 fantasy points. So that's it for look back, guys. Obviously, I had to tilt about Kemba. I know probably a lot of you guys played Kemba too, and he was a good player, right? He was 30% in the higher dollar stuff. I thought he'd be a little bit more popular than that. Just really unfortunate foul trouble plus his absolute floor game. But it is what it is. Again, that's, variance like that, bad variance like that can happen in NBA. So, all right, let's talk about this 4-game slate. We have Wizards and 76ers at 228.5 over under. The 76ers are 7.5 point favorites. A little bit of blowout risk there. Lakers and Suns at 213 over under. Suns 3-point favorites. Hawks and Knicks at 215 over under. The Knicks 1.5 point favorites in the late night hammer here. Grizzlies, Jazz 216 over under. The Jazz are 8.5 point favorites. All right, so let's start off with Washington. And at the top, Russell Westbrook at 12.1K. It's a tough matchup, and it's just with the playoff slates, there's not as much value, right? It's a lot harder to build a stars and scrubs slate, so I don't think Westbrook is completely out of play just because he's Russell Westbrook and he can go for 80 any game. I just have a hard time prioritizing him on this 4-game slate with not a ton of value. Brad Beal's the guy I would rather get to for the price at 8.7K. He should play 35-ish minutes. Even though it's a bad matchup, I do much prefer Beal to Westbrook. Now, obviously with Beal, there's some risk, right? He's dealing with a hamstring injury. But, I think he's going to play 35-plus minutes here. The rest of the Wizards, I don't have a ton of interest in. Like Rui's at 5.2, doesn't really stand out. Ish off the bench. Right, he's now at almost 5K. That doesn't really stand out. Be careful with Gafford here. That's all I'm saying, guys. Trust me, I'm a big Daniel Gafford fan, but be careful. 5 blocks and 1 steal, and a double-double. That was against the Pacers. This is against Joel Embiid. So I am not going to go to Daniel Gafford. He is the center of the Wizards that has the most upside, but I'm just really worried about foul trouble against a guy, Joel Embiid. So right, Gafford is not out of play, but I feel like he might be a little bit over-owned on this slate. Rolling that to a 4-1 after the terrible game against Boston. He bounced back and played 26 minutes. Actually played decent, sure, for value, right? I guess he's playable. Bertans, it's just, he'll play probably about 20 minutes. He's got to hit his threes, so it's a pretty low floor. I don't love it. Len and Lopez, we know they'll mix into the center rotation. Len will start, probably play about 12 minutes. Lopez, I think, is actually their best option to defend Embiid. He's at 3.6, so like maybe he's my favorite Wizard center, I guess. But it's just, I don't really want to deal with this in this 4-game slate. So let's move on to the 76ers. 76ers are a team I really like here. Joel Embiid at below 10K against this team. I absolutely love him. I think the only way he fails here is blowout. Blowout or foul trouble, that's it. He's going to play 35-plus minutes in a close game. I really like Embiid there at the top. And surprisingly, I have some interest in Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. These are two guys that have really taken a step back offensively. But this is the Wizards. And again, they probably play a little bit more than normal. So Ben Simmons is 7-1 and Tobias Harris is 7K. I actually like as well. The 76ers team is probably my favorite team to target on the slate. By no surprise, right? They're going up against the Washington Wizards. As far as value goes, like Seth Curry's at 5K. I don't really want to pay 5K for him. We know Dwight will play the backup 5, but not enough for me to get excited there. Maxey has been playing well, and he had the really big game when they rest a lot of guys. But like in the regular rotation, does he play enough for me to get there? Probably not. I'll take a wait and see approach here. Don't think I'm going to get to end. Oh, I guess Danny Green. I hate playing this guy, but he should, in a close game, play about 30 minutes. There's not a ton of value. So I actually get playing him, right? Because the minutes should be about 30. He's somewhat light in the scoring, but again, it's a matchup plus the fact there's not a ton of value in the slate. For that reason, I think Danny Green is in play. All right, Lakers and Suns. So this Lakers team, it's going to be interesting to see how they play it, right? Because you saw their best lineup is AD at the 5. And they have 3 other centers. So are they going to go back to playing more of like Drummond and Gasol and Harrell? Or are they going to play more with AD at the 5? And the reason I say this is because like AD at the 5 gets a massive boost as opposed to AD at the 4. So I guess we'll start LeBron James at 10.2K. He played 35 minutes against Golden State. He looked pretty good. He went for a triple-double. I'm expecting similar run for LeBron. So if you can get to LeBron James, I think he's a pretty safe option. Again, the only thing we have to worry about there is the ankle, and plus the match was not necessarily the best. But again, if you have the salary for LeBron, I'm not going to talk you off him. No, AD, again, it just depends how the Lakers are going to play this, right? If they play him a lot at the 5, I think he could have a really big game. If they go back to the traditional center and AD at the 4, then he's not going to look as good. So I'm not sure what the Lakers are going to do here. Drummond, it's just, right, could play 15 minutes and get you 10 fancy points. Could play 30 minutes and get you 40 fancy points. Fine for tournaments. Again, though, the range of outcomes, even with minutes now, are so wide for him. Schroeder and Kuzma in the mid-range. I think I'd prefer Schroeder. I think he plays more. Even though he had an awful shooting game, he's still in for 26 fancy points. I think he's a fair play in the mid-range. Other value plays, KCP and Caruso are both fine. Again, these are two guys that should be in the closing lineup. KCP probably plays about 30 minutes. Again, though, like has to hit his threes. Caruso played really well off the bench. He's a guy that can do a little bit of it all, and is a solid defender. So both those guys are fair values. Neither like really stand out. And I'm gonna stay away from the backup centers. I just don't know what the Lakers are gonna do here this rotation. So I'm just gonna stay away. Moving on to the Phoenix Suns. So the price points in the Suns, they feel a little bit too cheap. The Suns, like for the whole regular season, has been a team I've been staying away from. And sure, this matchup's not the best, but the price points here, right? So we'll start with Devin Booker at 8K. Maybe not a cash game play because he still has a somewhat low floor because he's not doing as much as many of the peripheral stats as Chris Paul is. But I think Booker is still a good tournament play. Chris Paul at 7.5. This just really stands out. Like, I know they've been taking it easy on his minutes in the regular season, like 32 to 34. My guess is his minutes go up here. I think he probably plays 35 plus. And the 7.5K price, even though it's a bad matchup, I just think that is too cheap. So I really like Chris Paul. I think one of the safest plays on the board there at that price. And I think DeAndre Ayton at 6.2 looks pretty interesting. He should play over 30 minutes. Again, I know it's the Lakers, but 6.2 is kind of tempting me with that price. So, the big three, I think all look pretty decent. Mikal Bridges, more of a secondary option. Campaign's been playing well off the bench, but I don't want to pay 4.7 for him. Now, Jay Crowder at 4.1, I actually think is okay because they're going to need his defense. He's probably going to be a guy that's going to be guarding LeBron a decent amount. So 4.1K for a guy that probably plays, I would say, close to 30 minutes. I actually do kind of like Jay Crowder here for value. Off the bench, I'm probably not going to get to anyone like Johnson, Saric, Kaminsky. I think I'll pass. Let's move on to Atlanta and New York. So on the Atlanta side, even though this is a bad matchup, there's a couple guys that I'm intrigued by. So Trae Young, the price at 8.5, that's what makes him in play here, right? If he was like 9.6, I would be like, nah, I don't want to play Trae Young. 8.5, all right, that's tempting me. For a guy that's going to play, 35 to 40 minutes, even though it's a bad matchup, I am very intrigued by Trae Young here for tournaments. I like him a good amount there. Kind of the same with Capella. I don't know if I get to him in a cash game setting, but he's a guy that probably plays 30, 35 minutes, and we know Capella's a good point per minute guy and can have some big games. So I'm intrigued by him for tournaments, and I do like Bogdan as well. 7K, right, for a guy that's going to play 35 to 40 minutes. He's going to get a ton of shot attempts up. He's been really consistent. Like, look at these box scores. His lowest score here in the last, 10 games is, 34. So, again, I know, trust me, I know this matchup's not great, but I think Young and Bogdan especially, I like a good amount here at their respective prices. John Collins at 6'4", we probably get about 30 minutes from him. Also feels a little bit underpriced. So, again, the main guys here for Atlanta I think are all viable. Gallinari off the bench at 4'8". I think we get somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes. He's somewhat reliant on the scoring. Fair value, not something that really stands out. I'm not going to really get to Herter or Hunter. I'll probably stay away from the rest of this Atlanta team. But yeah, Trae Young, Bogdan Bogdanovic, I think the two guys I like the best here. I think they both look good for tournaments. I'm moving on to the Knicks. I really like Julius Randle at 9.2K. One of my favorite plays in the slate. An optimal play for sure. He's a guy that, can the minutes go up for him? Probably not. He was already playing 40 minutes. So what, does he play 48 instead of 43? I guess he can just play the whole game because it's Thibodeau. But yeah, the matchup's way better on this side of the ball. I absolutely love Julius Randle here at 9.2K. That is just way, way too cheap. RJ Barrett, a guy I don't like playing, but hey, 6'4", that's tempting me with that price. It is. So I think RJ Barrett's a pretty decent play in the mid-range. I think Derrick Rose is a good tournament play off the bench. The issue I have with D Rose is Burks off the bench too, and Burks has been a high usage guy, kind of taken away from Derrick Rose. So I might prefer Burks actually to D Rose. Burks is cheaper, and both players again are going to be kind of high usage guys off the bench. So actually prefer Burks to D Rose. I think Burks is a pretty solid value play. Reggie Bullock, we know what he is. I don't like playing this guy, but he's going to play close to 40 minutes. He's pretty reliant on the scoring. So yeah, playable. And then I was looking into it. I don't think Mitchell Robinson's going to be back for this series. So assuming he's still out, Nerlens Noel, 4.1K. I think this is a really good value play. He's probably going to play about 30 minutes, and we know the Atlanta front court's big. I do kind of like Noel for value. So there actually is a good amount I like here for the New York Knicks. Finally, Memphis and Utah. So we'll start with Ja Morant, who had the absolutely massive game their last game. Again, the reason main reason why he had that big game was the early foul trouble of Jonas Valanciunas. So with that being said, in the tough matchup here, I'll probably stay away from Ja. Now, the guy that I would still go back to the well on, maybe not for cash games, because this is one of the worst matchups against Rudy Gobert. But I still think you can take a risk on Jonas Valanciunas for tournaments just because he's such a good point per minute guy. And as long as there's no foul trouble, he's going to play 35 plus minutes. So I actually don't mind taking a shot on Jonas Valanciunas for GPPs. Dylan Brooks too, he's going to play close to 40 minutes. He's getting a ton of shot attempts up. He had a bad shooting game last game, so he went for 24 again. He does have a somewhat low floor if he's not hitting his shots, but I think he's still intriguing in the mid-range. Slow-mo at 5'8", kind of just a fair play. Again, he played 39 minutes in a do-or-die game. Or, again, that was overtime, though, so I guess only 33. Triple J got in foul trouble and then didn't come back in. That will lower the ownership. The price would come down a little bit. If you're confident he goes back to 30-plus minutes, then I think he's a good tournament play. But, again, you always have the risk of the foul trouble. It's not a good sign that, late in the game they actually went to Tillman over him. Desmond Bane at 4'4", probably plays about 20, 25 minutes off the bench. Doesn't really stand out there. And Tillman had a really big game. Be careful here, though. He had JV and Triple J foul trouble. So, feels like chasing a little bit with a guy like Tillman. Also, Grayson Allen got more minutes because of the foul trouble of Jonas Valanciunas. Right? So, I don't really feel good about the bench guys here for Memphis. Finally, the Utah Jazz. So, it really just depends on how many minutes does Mitchell play? Is he full go? If he's full go and plays 35 to 40 minutes, then I think Mitchell looks pretty good here at 8'8". If they're going to limit him, then a guy I look to is probably Mike Conley at 6'7", who revenge narrative here too, should play about 30 to 35 minutes. He's been a good point per minute guy. He has. So Conley would be a guy I would look to. I think he's a safe play either way. But if they're going to limit Mitchell, then I like Conley even more. Clarkson feels a little bit too pricey with Mitchell back. Rudy Gobert is fine too. A guy I don't really like playing, but he should play 30, 35 minutes. They're going to need his defense out there against Jonas Valanciunas, so that seems a little bit too cheap for Gobert. The other guys like Bojan, Ingles, kind of priced up from when Mitchell's out, so I think I'm going to stay away from the rest of the Utah Jazz. And that's going to do it for the video today, guys. So if you haven't enjoyed the content so far, I would really appreciate if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. Again, I will be doing a YouTube live stream about 10 hours from now. So you'll see me again very, very soon, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Central. Be sure to check it out, guys. Thanks again. Have a good night, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning in the live stream.